takes us to our next topic on the Game Award nominees. So this week we actually had the nominations for the Game Awards. From memory, the Game Awards is on the 10th of December. And like this show, instead of being in front of a live audience, it's actually going to be at a studio, and they're going to do it live. And it's also a bit strange. They're doing it from LA, Tokyo, and London. So I think they're using the London Philharmonica. What do you call it? No, what do you call those things? Not opera.
Orchestra.
Orchestra. Sorry, that's it. So yeah, like I actually am really looking forward to watching it. And we should look at, do we do like a reaction or live reaction on it, or we'll figure out that offline maybe.
I'm just interested to hear what a Philharmonica sounds like.
Isn't that what it's called? The London Philharmonic.
Philharmonic.
Oh, is it?
Phil with a harmonica.
Nice. Philharmonica, yeah, that's a new instrument played by 100 people.
Which games are up for?
Well, do you want to go through them, Mike? And,
sure.
and maybe put them in order of what you think that should win quickly.
In order of what I personally think.
Yeah.
Gosh. Okay.
From number 1 to 6.
So let's.
Well, we'll do it the other way around. Do it the other way around. Do the one that you think is last, all the way up to your number 1.
It's tough though. It's really tough. How about I just go them in whatever order, I'll quickly do a debrief, because I think I've played all of them. So Animal Crossing: New Horizons. That's the first one. Now, both you and I have played that significantly, I would say. I think it's an excellent game. Huge reach. There's so many people that I think played that weren't even, traditional people that play a lot of games.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend got hooked on that. I think she probably put in more hours than I did.
Well, yeah, it sold like 26 million in 6 months. So it's definitely got people who have never played games before. Yeah. But I was actually shocked to see it nominated. Were you, Swinny?
I wasn't shocked, but I think I know you've got a hunch about it, and I think you might be right. So we'll get to that.
Okay. I think it's an excellent game. Is it game of the year for me? Probably not. I did my thing, and then it feels they try to go kind of broad, but then it felt a little empty towards the end, if that makes sense. There just wasn't a lot of stuff you could do. Pretty hollow at the end.
That's Animal Crossing.
Swinny's the Animal Crossing hater. He's just like, I played it on the Nintendo 64, the Japanese translation. I don't need to play it ever again.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Doom Eternal is the next one.
So that's the next one, yep. So I have also played that. I haven't finished it. I don't know how far into it I got, but I got into it enough to go, excellent game.
Did you play Doom? It's 2016?
Yeah, I that one I actually did finish. So to me, this was a bit of an extension of that, obviously.
Oh, okay. You didn't find it was different. Interesting.
No, I thought it was different, but it wasn't. It was an evolution of it. It wasn't the impact I think that 2016 had, where it felt like a fresh, new, different experience that went back to, that old school type of shooter that is arcadey, fun. Whereas Doom Eternal just felt like a bit of an extension of that, more polished, added a bunch of new concepts, but it still felt like Doom. So excellent game. I do wonder though, because of, I guess, a lot of people play that game, but I don't know if as many people would have had access to it as, say, Animal Crossing as an example. And I don't know.
Obviously not. Animal Crossing sold more than everything on this list combined.
Yeah, but it is also available through. Is it not on Game Pass now?
Doom Eternal?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass.
So it's, in terms of reach, I can also see that. I don't know what the numbers are. I'd be interested to see. I could see a lot of people probably have downloaded it on that as well.
That's true.
You probably get close to 26 mil. Did you guys play it yet?
No, I'm waiting for it to come on PC on Game Pass.
I'll just get ahead of this. I haven't played any of these games. I'm just getting ahead of this.
Mike has played all of these games, and Swinny's played.
I have, but
none.
To be fair, 3 of these are PlayStation exclusives.
So the next one is a PlayStation exclusive, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Yep. Which I don't know what is wrong with me. So I was looking forward to this game probably more than any other game in recent memory. I loved Final Fantasy VII as a kid. Finished it, put in I don't know how many hours into that one, and I love the remake, and I love playing it. And then I don't know what happened. I kind of just dropped it, and other things got in the way, and I never went back to it. So now that I have the PS5, I'm hoping I can start it again and play it in 60 FPS. But I'm reading that it doesn't actually have that yet. They haven't patched that
Yeah, it
through,
doesn't.
so there's no
Could be a
incentive,
while.
I guess, to start that again. But I could totally see how this would, to me at least, if I had finished it, would probably be a pretty strong contender, if not the number one. So what would you rank Final Fantasy VII, obviously the original, roughly in your list of Final Fantasy games, Swinny?
Oh wow, okay. It's dropping over the years. Let's just put it there.
How dare you? How
Final
dare you,
Fantasy 6
sir?
in front of it. For
Come
sure.
outside in the car park right now.
It's that's a topic for another day. What's the next game?
Okay,
Ghost
so the
of
next game.
Tsushima.
That's right, Ghost of Sushi, which I have also played. I don't know how much I talked about this last time. I thought it was an excellent game, super solid experience. The thing is, I found it had that sort of early Assassin's Creed vibe where / any Ubisoft title really, where it felt like it took one concept and then just multiplied it 20 times across the map. And as a result, there wasn't really that sense of exploration that you get from some other games. So if I was to use, Demon Souls as an example, you feel like it's awesome exploring every single tiny corner of every map. Granted, the maps are a hell of a lot smaller because there's something there. There's something different. It's all handcrafted. It's awesome. And whilst obviously Ghost of Tsushima is also handcrafted, a lot of the parts feel like it's just a rehash of the same thing.
You're talking about two very different genres. One's an open world
I know
game.
I know that. It's really hard to
and
compare
one's
the
not
two.
an open world game.
I'll use a different example. Grand Theft Auto.
Okay,
Big open world. To me, there was always more of an incentive to go check out a different place because everything felt fresh and different.
Oh,
Whereas
really?
with
I find it
this-
very repetitive as well, to be honest.
Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, every game in the end is going to be repetitive to some extent. Obviously, that's the nature of games. But I just feel the
it's not.
map was
Pong's
more
not
unique and
repetitive.
handcrafted. Whereas with this, it felt like it took, say for example, the typical thing you get in Ubisoft games where you have an enemy camp and you need to go and take it out and kill the leader or something. Same sort of concept, maybe 10 different times with different layouts and stuff like that. Now, that's not a huge deal breaker in the end because there's so many things about this game that are excellent. The gameplay was fantastic. I can easily see this as being game of the year for a lot of people. Yeah, I totally could. Yeah,
only
it isn't for me personally, but I totally could.
If only there was an Assassin's Creed game that just came out that just actually went against that whole concept. That'd be interesting.
So I think Ghost of Tsushima was a bit of a shock for everyone in terms of
I so want to see Goose of Tsushima now. That's the episode title. I'm sorry.
It's like the Untitled Goose Game with some katanas.
So I think it did surprise everyone because, at first there was a lot of hype for it. And then for whatever reason, people started to just be really fearful of the game and it was going to suck or something because they didn't really show much of it just before it released. But I think in the end, that's just blown away people, that game, and all the DLC that they've had, free DLC post the game actually coming out. And I think it was a little bit like the next one, Hades, where that surprised people how good that was.
Yeah, I talked enough about that one.
Yeah.
Next.
And then the last game, and this game to me is like odds on, clear favorite. I'd be very, very shocked if this next game's not going to win.
Yeah, same.
The Last of Us Part 2. I was thinking you were going to say it.
No, I was waiting for you. Again, I've talked about this enough. Excellent game. Loved it. Not as much as the first one. But
so out of these six, which one would you say is your game of the year? Because you're the only one that's played all six.
So I'm going to have to go... Out of these six, I'm going to have to go with The Last of Us, purely because it's the one that I finished properly. Whereas the other ones, I didn't give them enough justice, if that makes sense.
But if you ranked them all and said, hey, any game that was released this year or in December last year, you would put Demon's Souls as number one?
Yeah, of course.
Interesting.
Any year, any decade.
So I actually read all the rules and how it worked. So Demon's Souls was within the cutoff for this year, right?
So how come it's not on the list?
Well, some games don't make the list, right? But supposedly, like I've read other interviews with Jeff Keighley, and he's sort of like, look, even with the rules, like they bend the rules. So they will get. I think they've added Among Us into some of the nominations. Is that right, Swinny?
I believe so. Yeah. So there's about 30 different categories,
Yeah,
and Among Us is in best mobile game.
which came out in 2018. So so people went at him about that, and he goes, look, it wasn't relevant, and now it is relevant. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. I actually like that they do it like
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I mean, it's game of the year, not game made that year.
Oh,
So
don't know
you
about
can
that.
kind of, yeah, I think that's a fair enough one, because you can get certain games that have a massive resurgence, and maybe they were made 5 years ago, but they're super popular and they have this massive impact on the gaming community that year. And I think that that's a perfect example. Yes, it's a mobile game, but you could probably also include it as part of Steam, because it's also available on Steam. And you can see how it's fair to have it, because it's huge. Like, I mean, there's so many memes about it. Everyone's talking about it. There's so many people playing it.
Yeah. And was like, there's one game for me that stood out that I was like pretty surprised it wasn't nominated. Was there anything for you guys?
Not in the game of the year, but I've got a couple of
Really?
notes
Okay.
about other categories. So when you've
Yeah, I can't think of it, because a lot of the big games that I can think of, I think, came out last year, at end of last year. So,
So for me, I was really shocked that Half-Life Alyx wasn't on the list for Game of the Year.
Oh yeah,
Just
wow,
like
'cause that
all
came this year,
accounts
didn't
that
it?
people have played it, they've said it's just so amazing and it's well deserving of being a Half-Life game. So yeah, I was just really surprised it wasn't nominated.
Thanks for reminding me. I have a copy of it, actually, that I never played. I know, another one of those games. I'm such an idiot. I have all these amazing games, and I haven't touched them. Oh, God.
So Swinny, other categories?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of them, but some I just kind of want to call out. So it's interesting that for best score in music, that Doom Eternal's up, because we know that there was a whole massive controversy about Doom Eternal with Mick Gordon and id Software and everything there. So it'd be
And they
interesting.
actually did say the composer. They're like Mick Gordon.
Yeah. So
what are they going to do? Because I think that's a bit controversial as well, because it wasn't just one composer in the end.
Yeah, but I mean, Mick Gordon's actually performed at the Game Awards previously. So
what happened, for the people who are out of the loop?
Do you want to run through it quickly?
A lot to do with. Look, I'm not going to give all details because I don't know all the details, but it got to do with the official soundtrack of Doom Eternal. So
I know, like, because I've read all of it. I was like really interested in what happened. So just very, very briefly. So Mick Gordon, Australian composer, very, very cool. Did Doom 2016, and he did do Doom Eternal as well. They wanted to do, because everyone loves the soundtrack so much, they'd promised to release like a vinyl version of the soundtrack, so like an original soundtrack composition with the game, so with Doom Eternal. And they actually delayed the entire collection because Mick Gordon wasn't able to deliver the composed tracks on time. And then Hugo, the guy who runs id now, he kept on like personally reaching out to Mick and was like, what's going on? So he was like, reaching out 3 weeks before they had to print it. Like, can you send us the files? Can you send us the compositions? Then they ended up having to use one of the internal audio guys. So he's not like a composer. And he did like mixes of some of the songs, and they used other songs from Mick himself. And they created the soundtrack because it was so overdue, released it. And then there was a whole bunch of people that were complaining about it because it was like some of the tracks, the way they were composed were like perfect. And then others were a bit like just not to the level that you'd expect. And it turns out that, some were composed by one person who had to do it under like duress almost, and like had to really quickly get through it. Yeah. And then Mick came out and saying, oh, this is crap. I didn't do these ones. They're horrible. And basically at that point, it was like, okay, well, the relationship with this guy severed, which is unfortunate because, there was such a good like branding between those two creators.
That we talked about this last week. Sound is such a critical part of a game, and the music in that is just perfect. So,
but it's interesting though, because the new DLC obviously doesn't have Mick at all. And I never really hear much about that, like in terms of people saying, oh, it just doesn't sound as good or whatever.
A lot of people probably don't even know about it, you know what I mean?
Maybe.
I wasn't in the know. I played both games and I didn't actually know any of that.
So he did do Doom Eternal.
Missed.
Yeah, so it's just he did all the tracks. It's just like when you compose it into like a CD or a vinyl or something, you have to remaster it.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's different for a game, the way that they structure it with the dynamic sound. So
Yeah, of course, yeah.
a couple of
so
other
what happens
things
if he wins, dude? Sweeney, do you reckon he's going to actually accept the award?
I think he will because
But will they let him? Because this is like a Kojima thing, right?
I think, look, yeah,
He's
but
the new Kojima.
I don't think id Software as Konami's a very different beast than id Software. So, but yeah. So just some other notes I wanted to make. So it's good to see Tell Me Why in Games for Impact. That's really really great. Obviously I played through that earlier this year. Spiritfarer as well. Now innovation in access. Sorry, I can't say this word. Accessibility.
Now that's going to be the show title.
Accessibility, yes.
Yes, innovation in accessibility. That's actually really cool because when you start up Valhalla, like we'll get to Valhalla soon, but it's just something mentioned here. There's actually a lot of accessibility options, way more than any other Assassin's Creed game. So it's actually interesting that they've actually put this in here. And the last thing I wanted to mention was they've got best multiplayer game, and they've put Animal Crossing New Horizons up for it.
Oh no, that's
That's
bad.
not really a multiplayer game, is it?
The multiplayer is horrible.
Exactly, like there's nothing
Yeah, I
in
wouldn't
there.
really call it multiplayer
There's
at
nothing
all.
in there
It's
to
just
like
sharing.
We've talked about before the fact that like there's so many little things Nintendo could do just to facilitate and make a huge like community out of the multiplayer with that, and they just don't do it.
I still laugh at the fact that my girlfriend and I shared the same island, and we would collaborate and do everything together, and take turns, and we'll give each other items, and I'll build stuff for her, and vice versa. And you and your wife, you guys had to get completely different switches for that game.
Well, do you guys have anything else to cover on the Game Awards? Because you've just opened up the greatest segue ever.
Da-da-da-da-da.